Okay, so we are recording now. So dangerous persuasion. Please feel free, guys. Like, I only have people on Zoom today, so just feel free to shout out or unmute yourself and talk. What are some things that you guys see are dangerous persuasion? What would make persuasion dangerous rather than just, you know, general people trying to get you to do something or buy something? Or I guess you guys can pop it in the chat too. It doesn't really matter to me. But I would like to get a little bit of interaction today. Terrorists, that would definitely be an example of dangerous persuasion. If you have someone who has convinced you to join an extremist group and, you know, do acts of terror, such as like suicide bombings or flying an airplane into a building. So what kind of, got another one. Maybe I should just leave the chat up. Yelling fire. So if you are in a movie theater or whatever, you could create a, you know, stampede or something. If someone's trying to get you to try drugs, could be an example of dangerous persuasion, because if they're trying to get a customer and it's like, oh, this person looks like they'd be, you know, someone good to spend money at my, you know, business, buying drugs. Yep. Voting. It could definitely be dangerous depending on who they're trying to get you to vote for, what kind of policies or what kind of person, or if they're just, you know, depends on what the situation is. So yeah, those are all persuasion. And, you know, as with everything, there are two sides to it. It can be dangerous or it could not be. So the three main things we're going to talk about today in regards to dangerous persuasion is advertising. So how do advertisers get us to buy things? Is advertising dangerous? Is it not? Multi-level marketing. So what is an MLM? How is that quote unquote dangerous? And then cults. Personally, just because I find cults really interesting, and cults don't actually try to recruit the people who you think of, like, you know, because you think of like cults as like, oh, it's crazy people and cults who believe this stuff. No, they really want to get like the stable people who have good jobs, because those are the ones who will give money to the cult. So I would jot these down, or at least remember them. So here are the 6 principles of persuasion, and we'll talk about these in regards to advertising, multi-level marketing, and cults. So the six basic principles is, the first one is reciprocity. So we like to reciprocate things as humans. So if someone gives us a free sample of something, we try to give them a little bit more of our time. So when you walk through the mall and it's always those people trying to hand you like the little perfume sticks or whatever, or just give you things because if someone gives you something you want to give back, whether that be in time or whether it be in money by purchasing something from them. This is one of the things they do if you've ever been to Europe, particularly in parts of Spain. So this happened to me when I was at the Granada, and there's a whole bunch of the Roma women, more commonly known as like the gypsies. They go out there and they hand you like flowers or like bushels of lavender, and they like push it into your hand. And then if you take it, they follow you around asking for money because they have given you a gift. And, you know, as humans, as people, we like to have that reciprocity. So, you know, if someone tries to give you something that you may not necessarily want, probably best to just say no so you don't feel obliged to reciprocate, because people will take advantage of that. You have commitment. So this is like in voting. So you'll have your party, whether Democratic, Republican, Libertarian, Independent, whatever, they'll text you. I got so many texts over the past 2 weeks, just saying like, hey, are you going to go vote? Can I get your, word that you're going to go out and tell 3 friends to vote? Blah, blah, blah. Because if you say something, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go out and vote. You've made a commitment to that. And we desire that consistency. We don't like cognitive dissonance where we say one thing and do another. So if they can get us to say, yes, we're going to go out and vote. And yes, I'm going to tell, Sue and, Jack and Jill to go out and vote. I've said it. So now I feel committed to go out and actually be like, hey guys, don't forget to go out and vote. So, or if, we're talking to a car salesman and they're like, hey, can I get your commitment to reach out to me next week or, whatever, then we feel obliged to reach out to them and say, yes, we're interested in this car, or no, we're not. And if we say, no, we're not, then they have a chance to be like, okay, well, what will it take to get you to come back here and maybe try out a different couple cars? What didn't you like about the one that you test drove, etc. Social proof. So it's our desire to follow the lead of other people who are similar to us. So basically fitting in. So if I know all of my friends are going out to vote for a certain candidate, I might follow that social expectation and go vote for that person as well. Or if all of my friends, are really into essential oils, I might be persuaded to, purchase theirs or to join up with them because we like doing what other people are doing because we like to fit in. That's part of the human experience. There's liking. So that's kind of like the social proof. We want to fit in and we want to agree with people who, at least on the surface, tend to resemble our values or share those with us. And it doesn't actually have to be legitimate because people can pretend as much as they want. And if you don't know them very well. So they might pretend to be similar to us or to have similar values in order to get our vote or in order to sell us something. Of course, that's dishonest, it's unethical, but if someone is trying to get money out of you or to get you to take an action that you might not normally, of course, they're gonna try to do anything that they can, right? Authority, so if we see someone in a lab coat, we see someone in a uniform, or even just someone who's dressed really nicely, dressed really well, we tend to want to just kind of believe them and take them at face value. So they use a lot of this in advertising. I don't know if you guys have seen like I think it was a Martha McSally ad. It was just really short, like 10 seconds. I kept getting it on YouTube. But it was obviously against Mark Kelly, and it was like some older doctor from Phoenix in a white lab coat. And that was that principle of authority. It's like, okay, here's this doctor in a lab coat who's saying Mark Kelly would be bad for Arizona, vote Martha McSally. There's that appeal to authority. And then scarcity. We see this one a lot. It's kind of that FOMO, that fear of missing out. A lot of car dealerships do this, or like I see it a lot like mattress stuff when I hear like mattress commercials on the radio, like, oh, this sale won't last long, the first 20 customers will get this thing, or the first 100 cars we sell this month will get this extra deal, get it before it's gone. So that scarcity of like kind of revving you up to say, oh my gosh, if I don't get this deal right now, then it's going to be gone. Spoiler alert, a lot of deals and sales and stuff are like biannual or every season. They're never going to run out of something that there's really a demand of, at least in that. Or it's like, oh, this is the best time to invest in this product. Probably not. There's always going to be another time of doing it. So, but they play on that scarcity mindset of humans where it's like, oh, well, if I don't do it now, I'm going to lose it. So do those make sense? Do we have any questions so far about those? Who did we just get joining us? Oh, we got Jesse, sweet. Awesome. Okay. Okay. So moving on to advertising, because this is probably the one we see the most about. How do we know when someone is trying to persuade us with advertising? So feel free to pop into the chat or just answer out loud. You know, probably chat would be best for this one. When was the last time you guys bought something? Probably this morning, right? I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be an answer. Like, I bought a hot chocolate this morning. Did advertising play a role in that? Probably not. I just kind of woke up and I was like, it's kind of cold outside. I want some hot chocolate. But when was yeah, Friday. Woo, you managed to go a whole weekend without buying stuff. I wish I had such willpower. But when was the last time you bought something that you didn't actually need? So, and then why would we buy something that we didn't need? So Jesse, do you want to share what it was that you bought that you didn't need? Impulse buying because of ads, or we see something cool on the television or hear it on the radio or a YouTube ad and we're like, man, that's a really cute pair of boots on Instagram that I just saw. I don't need it, but man, do I really want it? It's only 30 bucks. Oh, okay, I'm gonna do it. Right, we do that hopefully not terribly often, but it is something that we do on a relatively kind of frequent basis. Otherwise, they wouldn't run ads. What's actually really interesting is that there's research that shows that advertising only works to a certain extent. If you're already kind of positive towards that thing or thinking about buying it, advertising might kind of push you over the edge to go buy it. But, you know, if I'm not, you know, in the market for boots or for shoes or for insert whatever here, you know, it's probably not going to convince me to go out and buy it, which is why they have targeted advertising. And we see this a lot on like Facebook, social media sites, all that jazz. And it's like, how did they know I was thinking about winter boots? Are they listening into our conversations, or do they just like know our search history and be like, oh, it's coming up on the winter season. There's probably people looking for winter boots. How many of you guys watched the Super Bowl? I'm going to assume like most people watch the Super Bowl in some way, shape, or form, right? How many of you guys watch it just for the advertisements? I know I do, because I love Super Bowl ads. Honestly, that's unless the Chiefs are playing, that's the only reason I'm going to watch the Super Bowl. But I don't know if you guys can remember a couple years ago, there was the Budweiser ad, which is probably one of the most famous Super Bowl ads, or at least the one it's always mentioned in the communication textbooks, of the sad little horsey, well, I guess it's not sad, but the sad Clydesdale that, you know, this guy raises from the little colt, and it's like, oh, now it's a big one, now it's going off to like pull the Budweiser stuff in the parade, and then the guy's all sad because it left, and then the horse sees him in the audience and like, you know, rushes out to go meet him, and they've been reunited and it's all happy. Yeah. But that's a pretty memorable ad. And why does it stick out to me? Because it's playing on that life journey, that triumphant return of where you have the birth of the colt, the death of the relationship, or the metaphorical death of where this horse goes away to work for someone else, and then the rebirth where they are reunited, which is a theme we see in a lot of advertisements and a lot of just stories and things in general. But it's playing on themes that we understand, so it helps convince us maybe not to buy beer, but possibly to have a more positive association with the brand Budweiser, because we get all those happy feelings when the horse and the guy reunite. And even if we don't drink, we might still be like, oh, you know, cute Budweiser commercial with the horse. Okay. So how do companies use these 6 principles of persuasion to get us to buy things? Well, reciprocity. They maybe send us a free sample. I don't know if they do this much anymore, but I remember like when you used to buy like Cosmo magazines and stuff, and just magazines in general, they'd put like the little perfume samples in between the pages. I have not bought a magazine in probably a decade, so I don't know if they still do that or not, but they used to. But they're giving us something, so we might be like, oh, well, that smells nice. And since it's a gift or whatever, we might feel some of that urge to reciprocate and be like, okay, well, I'm either going to maybe go buy another one of these magazines or maybe go out and buy this particular perfume or whatever the free sample was for. It's hard to get commitment unless you're face to face. So people who are, you know, in brick and mortar stores are easier to get the commitment, whether it's like having you try on a pair of shoes, you know, just committing. It's like, hey, why don't you just try these on and tell me what you think. Social proof, if other people are doing it, like if everyone in your class wears Nikes and you're the only one with Adidas, and someone's like, hey, you should try Nikes, they're really comfortable. Or if you're the only one on your volleyball team who, you know, wears, you know, this certain brand of whatever. Liking, authority. Advertising uses a lot of authority. I'm sure you guys have all seen the, what is the word I'm thinking of? Toothpaste commercials and like toothbrushes. Like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend, because they're relying on that authority of saying, oh, a dentist has gone through a lot of school. They recommend, you know, Oral-B or Crest or insert whatever here toothpaste, toothbrush brand you can think of. And then we kind of already talked about the scarcity one, like the fear of missing out, where companies like, if you don't get this deal now, it's going to be gone. The deal always comes back around. So I have this short little video. I think it's 4 minutes. Yeah.
Advertising is everywhere. And what you read, what you watch, what you eat, what you wear, they're in the sky, they're on the ground, they're in the water. Our economy thrives on you buying more and more and more, even though you don't need any more. And, oh yeah, you're in debt. The goal of advertising is simple. Get you to buy a product. To make you say, yes, I want it. I need it. My life will be better with this retro cowbell dispenser, but a mason jar too. It's adorable. This is the love that won't fall over. Watch this. It fell. We wanted to learn how advertisers capture our attention and get us to buy stuff we don't even really need. So we turned to Jonas Sachs, an advertising executive and co-founder of Free Range Studios, to explain a few ways brands get into our head. How do ads tell us who we are, or maybe tell us who we should be?
We see 3,500 of them a day, and the majority of them basically tell us you suck. If you don't buy this product, you're not going to be rich enough, smart enough, hot enough, and so we walk around being told 3,500 times a day how inefficient and lazy we are.
Are there any ads that just stuck out in your mind?
The number one most shared advertisement on YouTube of all time is that Dove Real Beauty Sketches ad. And if the Real Beauty Sketches is all about how women are so much more beautiful than they think they are. And they start with a police artist who's sketching them. Tell me about your hair. They take a picture of what they think they look like, or just what a stranger thinks.
And have a background or face.
People are saying, listen, there are hundreds of millions of people with a positive message about beauty. People want to share it. So say, oh, those are my values, that's my idea. And then you start buying soap because you share this value. So this is one of those classic shop therapy ads. That, you know, pairing to it is hard, drinking Coke is easy. You just speak to people on the level of identity, you speak to people on the level of emotion. There are millions of people who are sit there and be like, yeah, that's my truth. That's it. That's all you need. Thanks, Coke.
Why use Beckham?
Advertisements tell you not that this product does this thing, it's that people like this use this product. If you want to be like these kind of people, use this product, you can see one of them. So, you know, we all want heroes in our lives, and we want to know how to be more like those heroes. And, you know, watching sports. And
We all wish we were David Beckham, let's be honest.
You up for whatever? Don't answer. Grab a Bud Light. Show. Try new things. Make new friends.
I mean, it's all just crafted around creating a gap. You don't have enough, you don't have what's right. It's not necessarily that the audience is saying, oh man, I need to spend more time in the club. It's like saying, they're saying everybody else is in the club, and why are you There's a huge amount of that.
Wow, advertisers are like crappy friends. They make us feel needy, ugly, and uncool, but we keep them around anyway. This is a beautiful moment. Sure could use a Coke.
Yeah, so there's just a real quick overview of advertising and, oh, no, stop. There we go. So, but we see advertising every day. Like we pass through billboards. We listen to the radio. We watch YouTube ads. If we have television, we watch TV. If we have Hulu, there's ads unless we pay for premium. But it's something to keep an eye out. And then next time you're thinking about buying something or listening to an advertisement, just kind of go through that in your head and say, how are they trying to persuade me? Do I really need this thing? Do I really want this thing? Or are they just trying to get me to buy something that I really don't need or really don't need to spend the money on, right? So any questions about advertising before we move on to the next section? Don't look like so. Oh, we already talked about that a little bit. So next is multi-level marketing. And why did I choose this one? Because it embodies many things that are wrong with persuasion. Like in my personal opinion, like if you're involved in multi-level marketing, that's your personal thing, but just know what you're getting into when you make that decision. So do you guys know what an MLM is? I'll tell you here in a second, in case you don't. You know, has anyone ever tried to recruit you for an MLM or get you to invest in their thing? Me personally, yes, I have had people try to do that. What tactics did they use? Well, they slide into your DMs and it's like, oh, hey girl, or whatever, you know, you're so pretty, you'd be great at doing what I do. I would not be great at dropping $5,000 on LuLaRoe because it's not happening. And then why do people join these? They join them because they think they provide an opportunity to make money. But as I will show you later in this, chances are you will not. But MLMs pretty much use every single one of these 6 principles of persuasion to get you to join and spend money with them. So it's like advertising on steroids. And then do you know how to identify one? Since we just watched a video, we'll come back to this one next. Let me make that slide 8. Okay, so we'll come back to this here in a second. Whoop. Oh, that's cool. It starts it when I hit the next button. Okay, so one thing that MLMs will try to do is they will try to kind of show themselves as direct selling. They are 2 very different things. Direct selling is a legitimate way to make money. So you are selling, like this says, products directly to consumers. It can be door-to-door sales. It can be internet. It can be, you know, having these home parties like a lot of MLMs do. Multi-level marketing does a very similar thing, but instead of making most of your money from actually selling the products, you tend to make more money by recruiting other people. So a lot of MLMs turn out to be pyramid schemes, but not all of them, which is where that kind of gets a little wonky, I guess. But so MLMs, you make money recruiting other people into your downline. Direct selling, you just make money from selling the products. But of course, you can make money doing both. But if we'd like to look at this from the actual Federal Trade Commission, if you are in an MLM, there is less than a 1% chance of you making money. So 99.6% of people lose money in a multi-level marketing business. If you are legitimately direct selling, 80% of people make money. If you're a wage earner, even just working at, you know, Walmart, I don't say just working at Walmart, but like working at Walmart or working at fast food or working as a secretary or as a college person or whatever, 100% profit. You don't lose money working a legitimate job. Legitimate direct selling, most of the time you won't lose money. The funny one is, if you're gambling at a roulette table, you have a 97% chance of losing money and almost a 3% chance of earning money, which is still more than if you're involved in an actual multi-level marketing company. But multi-level marketing, they are trying to recruit you to sell their product with them or for them in a down line. And why is this dangerous? Well, I just showed you that most people lose a lot of money in it. And people know this. I'm sure we've all seen the people on social media who work for like Young Living or whatever. Young Living is an MLM. So sorry if that's something that you're involved in. But we see these people who it's like, oh, I just got a free car or a free vacation, or, I got the Mary Kay car or the Avon stuff. Those are all multi-level marketing companies. But, the cars aren't actually free. The vacations aren't free. Less than 1% of people in it are actually making money. But they really hype it up and say, it's like, no, you can earn this kind of money too, when, as you can see, based on the Federal Trade Commission, a function of the United States government, most people do not. And this is dangerous persuasion because they try to recruit college students, typically, people who are in transitions in their life, people who may be a little bit low on money, to get into these because there's the promise of, oh, well, you can make lots of money by selling the stuff, when in reality, you can't. So we'll watch this real fast and then talk about these 6 principles of persuasion: the reciprocity, commitment, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. So keep those in mind as we watch this.
A new luxury car, a community of people to support you, a way to make money on your own schedule while you sleep. These are some of the things I was told I could achieve when I joined a multi-level marketing company in the summer of last year. An acquaintance of mine approached me about joining her team. I would be selling health and wellness products such as vitamins, drink supplements, and protein, and promoting a healthy eating program designed to allow people to drop weight quickly. At the time, I was taking a summer semester in nursing school, which my scholarships didn't cover. I was also dealing with some painful things in my personal life, which left me extra vulnerable to the community aspect of the MLM. I was promised that no one got any direct financial gain from signing me up. Needless to say, the whole thing sounded too good to be true, but I jumped in anyway. I spent around $400 on my starter kit, plus a bunch of additional products so that my customers could see that I believed in them. I spent about another $300 on parties, where I invited my friends and family to look at products and hear long speeches about why they should either join the team or make purchases. I threw about 8 parties, which were never really profitable. Most people found the products too expensive. I felt guilty for trying to convince people that they were worth the money, knowing deep down that if I didn't get a discount for being a representative, I wouldn't be buying the products either. My own hypocrisy disgusted me. The more team meetings I attended and the more required reading I did, the more I realized I would have to be more aggressive if I wanted to make as much money as my uplines. The official titles of the person who recruited me, the person who recruited her, and so on. They were reaching out to upwards of 50 people weekly. This meant that I had to have messages written out to copy and paste and send to basically everyone I had on my social media. This was wildly uncomfortable for me and rarely fruitful. I lost followers and friends and received hateful messages. I felt hopeless. I would get on social media daily and view the pages of the successful people in the company and how they managed to have perfect social media feeds, make so much money, own that free car, perfect bodies, and beautiful families. I was constantly comparing myself to them, which led me to pour more money into my business. I wanted to copy a life that someone else was living, as my own did not feel good enough. This was a vicious cycle. It took a toll on me in ways I couldn't have predicted. I quit about a year after I signed up. I learned some valuable lessons along the way, and I hope what I'm sharing here will help others in similar situations. Number 1, trust your gut. Remember when I said that the whole thing seemed too good to be true? If you get that gut feeling about something, don't ignore it. There's a good chance that it is in fact too good to be true, which leads me into number 2. Number 2, don't put your blinders on while doing the research. When I researched my company, I can't lie and say that I didn't find horrible things about it. I saw several articles referring to it as a pyramid scheme or waste of money and so on. I addressed this with the girl who had recruited me. She seemed to have an armory of pre-programmed responses to every question I could have come up with. I trusted her, so I turned a blind eye to the things I was seeing. Number 3, no red flags when you see them. Once I became involved with the business, I picked up on things that made me uneasy. My uplines hosted team meetings where they would lay out the list of things you should be doing throughout the week to grow your business. Reach out to dozens of people, self-development books, recruit. It felt unnatural and fake, but I was promised that if I did these things and followed in their footsteps, I would make money. So I ignored the red flags. Number 4, if you're putting in more than you're getting back, money or otherwise, run. I was investing a lot of money in the hopes of earning back. Of course, I did earn some money, but that wasn't much in comparison to the time and energy I put. The mental aspect of MLMs is often overshadowed by the financial aspect. My self-worth took as big of a hit as my wallet, if not bigger. Number 5, don't be afraid to share your story or reach out to others who've been through this. When I made the decision to quit, as relieved as I was, I couldn't help but feel silly. Not only for joining an MLM in the first place, but also for quitting. It took a lot of cleansing on my part to fully get over it. Deleting former team members on social media, throwing away old books and pieces of propaganda. But the biggest step I took was opening up about it and sharing my story. I was not the first nor the last person to fall into the trap of MLMs. These companies prey on people's biggest insecurities, their physical appearances and financial statuses. It's no wonder that people are tricked into pouring money, time, and energy into these businesses. My grand total was almost $1,000, which includes roughly $500 on products, $300 or so on parties, and the rest on marketing materials. However, I can't put a price on the hit my self-worth took during those months. My hope in sharing this is to let those who into my schemes know that they're not alone either. The best we can do is learn from it, move forward, and empower others to not fall into the same trap.
Okay. So I'm sure all of us probably know someone who is involved in something like this. If it works for them, that's great. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. But it's just something to watch out for, just in general. How do they use reciprocity? So if you host a party and are giving out free things or food or whatever, people feel obliged to help you out and possibly invest in your product or become your downline. Commitment, if you can get someone to say, yes, I will do this thing, or yes, I will let you have a party at my house, or, yes, I will try this product or whatever, there's your foot in the door. Social proof. If you see all these other people making money in something, then you say, well, no, I can do that too. I can be just as good as them, even if they're not really making money, even if they're just showing or pretending that they are on social media, because the things we see on social media, they're not always real. People can fake a lot when you're not, face to face with them. So liking, if it's someone who we like and enjoy being around, a friend, a family member, we might want to support them and help them out in, whatever ventures they're doing, but we just have to say, is this smart financially for us? If they have someone on staff who's an authority, so like Roden and Fields is a multi-level marketing company that sells skincare. And it was started by 2 dermatologists who, are credentialed. They're not unintelligent. They're not uneducated. So they have authority in that area. So they might know how to do their skincare, but that doesn't mean their business model is the best thing in the world. And then scarcity, a lot of companies, like we said, use this tactic, like, oh, if you don't invest now in this product or in this company, there's never going to be a better time to invest in it. With COVID and everything going on, you may as well, invest in starting your own business, quote unquote. That's a lot of the things that they use. They say, oh, you're going to start your own business. You're a contractor and you still have to pay taxes and stuff on it, even if you're not really making money. So just some things to think about. And I do have a lot of the sources for this that I can post into our thing. Any questions so far? We got about 10 minutes left. I guess I could do cults in 10 minutes, but cults are really fun to talk about, in my personal opinion. Okay, but yeah, we'll do it in 10 minutes. So, cults. So why is this in here under dangerous persuasion? You know, no sane person would join a cult, right? Cults want the sane people. I know we think of cults as like Jonestown and Jim Jones, or the Branch Davidians down in Waco, Texas with David Koresh, or even like the Moonies. Actually, those are probably all like 90s, early 2000s things that some of you might not remember or know about. But there's new cults popping up all the time. The most recent one that's been in the news is Nexium, which was like a self-help cult by Kenneth Raniere? I don't know, it's like a French last name, that don't quote me on how to pronounce it. But people would spend a whole bunch of money to get this guy's self-help, and lo and behold, turns out part of it was like a sex cult where they were branding women, and, you know, they were his slaves, quote unquote. And I mean, that's literally what they called them. So I guess it shouldn't be in quotes, but, you know, and these were, you know, well-educated, intelligent, like talented women that were getting pulled into this. So it's not like the quote unquote crazy people who are involved in cults. It can be anyone who can be recruited into it, because that's what they want. They want stable people to give money to it. How do intelligent people fall for cults? Well, people want a place to belong. And then what are the signs and what can we do to help? So how do people get recruited into cults? And if, you know, just based on the name, you know, cults, there's a difference between a benevolent cult, which is what some people just, you know, can be anything, and then a destructive or dangerous cult. You may see signs of cults in, you know, a lot of things, but that doesn't mean it's a dangerous or destructive cult. But how do cults recruit people? Well, you have to pick the right target. And typically, college students are really good targets for being recruited into cults. If you go back to, I think it was like the 70s, and you look at the Moonies. So the Sun Kim Moon, I think that's what his name was. He was a Korean. He started like a cult over, well, I mean, I guess in South Korea, and then it kind of moved over here too. But the Moonies, they recruited a lot of college students because they would, you know, college students were in that thing of transition where they aren't really sure of their place in the world and are looking for meaning. And college students are stressed. If they've moved away from home, they might not have very good family connections if their family is far away. And if they're in college, they're probably relatively stable or relatively intelligent, and can, you know, help work and get money into the cult. But people who crave belonging, people who are typically more unassertive, who don't question authority, people who tend to be a little more gullible, because you can be gullible and intelligent. If you like to be very certain of things, if you think in terms of black and white, if you feel marginalized, if you're very idealistic, or you just have a desire for spiritual meaning and you have a need to believe that there's a higher purpose in life, those are all the traits of people who can get recruited into cults more easily than someone who doesn't have these traits. That's not to say that these traits in themselves are bad or negative, because they're not. It's just saying that if you have a multitude of these, then you might be more prime pickings if a cult wants to recruit you. So just be aware of that. But then how do people get recruited? So they look for these types of people, and they use a couple different tactics. The biggest one, particularly that the Moonies used, was love bombing. So you flood that person with affection, flattery, and validation. It's like, oh, you know, you're so awesome, you're so intelligent, you're so handsome, you're so beautiful, you're so special, you know, and we can help you realize all of this potential if you come and join us. You isolate them. So some of the biggest examples of this was like Jonestown with Jim Jones and David Koresh with the Branch Davidians. Jim Jones literally took his congregation to Guyana in Jonestown. I think it was in Guyana. I don't know, South America somewhere, to isolate them literally from the rest of the world, where they started their little town, Jonestown. David Koresh and the Branch Davidians went out to Waco, Texas, and built their little compound out there, and where they were isolated from the rest of the world. And if you are isolated like that, then you can't really get out into the world and get a reality check and be like, oh, is what I'm doing really correct? Is it really good? Like, is this being beneficial for me in my future, outside of, you know, this cult? They might censor newspapers, books, and TV and say, you can't read that because it's anti-cult propaganda, or it's anti, you know, Jim Jones, for example. So you are not allowed to read that. And then the last way is to just keep control. So once you've love bombed them, got them into it, you've got them on the compound, or you've got them isolated, you have to keep control. So it's a mix of terror and love. So you instill lots of fear, and you switch between the two. I'm speaking as a cult leader. I'm not a cult leader, but like cult leaders do this. They will terrify you, and then they'll show you lots of love and switch between, like, kind of, I mean, it is an abusive relationship. It's an abusive power relationship where someone will terrify you into submission and be like, oh, well, why are you so scared of me? I love you, blah, 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 blah. So here is the BITE model. Stephen Hassan, who is a cult expert, says these are some of the signs of a cult. We see a lot of these signs in a lot of things. So just one piece does not mean that you are in a cult, or that this particular thing is a cult. It's when a lot of these build up and you have multiple from each. So behavior control. So one of the big ones, like for the isolationists, dictate when and with whom that you live. So like Jim Jones took everyone down to Jonestown in South America. He dictated where these people were allowed to live. Control clothing and hairstyle. You know, you can, if we think of like North Korea, you have a list of like 11 hairstyles that you can choose from. Deprive you of sleep. So sleep deprivation makes you more vulnerable to suggestion. Exploit you financially. So it's like, oh, you have a trust fund, or you have money in the bank. Well, guess what? That's ours now. Information control. So withhold or distort information. Discourage access to outside sources of information. Gaslight you to make you doubt your own memory. Encourage you to spy and report on misconduct. Thought control. So black versus white, good versus evil thinking. Make you change your name, possibly. Give you a new name, change your identity, use hypnotic or trance states to indoctrinate. So like chanting, singing, stuff like that can be a form of thought control if it puts you into a meditative state. Toxic positivity, so only allowing positive thoughts. Reject rational analysis. And then emotional control, so it's instilling irrational fears. So one of the things like the Moonies did was, you know, oh, if your parents, because they typically recruited college students, oh, if your parents start questioning the Moonies or whatever, you know, they're controlled by Satan. Satan's gonna, you know, Satan has taken over your family or whatever. And I'm using the Mooney example because Stephen Hassan, who did all this research, he was a Mooney. And that's what he talked a lot about, like as a Jewish kid who didn't believe in Satan or anything, they changed his entire belief system. So now he was in fear that Satan was, you know, taking over his family, even though he was originally Jewish and didn't even believe in Satan at all. Label emotions as evil or sinful or wrong. Promote feelings of shame, guilt, unworthiness. Threaten your friends and family, like, oh, if you leave, we're gonna, you know, kill your friends and family. Shun you if you disobey. Or teach that there is no happiness or peace outside the group. So like, oh, if you leave the cult or whatever, you know, if you leave Nexium, you're never going to reach enlightenment. You know, if you leave Jonestown, you know, the world's going to end or whatever. Here's some resources for cults, because like for the MLMs and advertising, there's not really a lot of resources for that because it happens so much. But we are out of time, and we are at the very end of our presentation. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, but just kind of think on these things. You probably won't experience, hopefully, you know, fingers crossed that you don't experience like a cult in your lifetime. But it's just one of those things that's a really good example of dangerous persuasion and how it uses these tactics to recruit people. Same with like MLMs and stuff. You know, you come across advertising every day. You probably come across MLMs relatively frequently. So when people are trying to persuade you to do these things, just think back on these 6 principles of persuasion, this reciprocity, this commitment, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity, and say, is this a legitimate thing that I want to be persuaded on, or are they trying to get something else out of me? So thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.